Welcome back, listener. Today we're diving deep into feeding practices for infants, children, and adolescents.
Sounds like a full plate.
You could say that. You've given us a pretty big stack of sources, guidelines, textbook excerpts,
Yeah.
all focused on this really important topic.
Mm.
And well, we're here to extract those golden nuggets of knowledge,
Yeah.
so you can navigate this crazy world of child nutrition.
Right. And it is a constantly changing world. It's pretty amazing, actually, just how much a child's nutritional needs change from, infancy all the way through those teen years.
Well, absolutely.
So we're going to break all that down into those stages and, more importantly, help everyone understand the why behind the recommendations so you can feel confident making those informed decisions every step of the way.
Awesome. All right, so let's set the stage here. First things first, what are we even aiming for when we talk about, quote, good child nutrition? What are the big picture goals?
Okay, so the overarching goals, they're really about supporting healthy growth and development on all fronts, right? Physical, cognitive, and reducing the risk of chronic disease, down the line.
Gotcha.
It's really about setting these kids up for success.
For sure. And one of the things that really jumped out at me when I was looking at these sources is the reality of childhood obesity.
Yeah.
It's almost like an epidemic, wouldn't you say?
It's definitely a serious concern. And the statistics are really pretty alarming. Almost 1 in 5 American children are obese.
Wow.
And it's not just about, weight. It's about increased risks for all these diseases that we typically associate with adults. You're talking heart disease, type 2 diabetes, even sleep apnea. And these are, very real consequences.
That's a sobering thought.
Yeah.
It really underscores how important nutrition is really from the start. So let's start at the very beginning. Infancy.
Okay. Yeah.
That first year of life, it's just incredible how much growth happens.
It really is. In just 12 months, a baby's birth weight triples.
Wow.
Their length increases by 50%.
It's mind-blowing.
It's rapid development, which is why those nutrients are absolutely crucial.
Absolutely crucial.
Yeah.
And speaking of crucial nutrients, we can't talk about infant nutrition without talking about breast milk. These sources are very clear.
Mm-hmm.
It's the gold standard.
Absolutely.
Nature's perfect food.
Yeah. Breast milk is truly remarkable. It provides everything an infant needs in a perfectly tailored package, antibodies, easily digestible protein, just the right blend of fats to support that rapid brain development that we were just talking about.
It's pretty amazing. And some of the sources actually even go deeper into the composition of breast milk, talking about things like oligosaccharides.
Oligosaccharides, yeah. What's fascinating about those is, they act as prebiotics, essentially feeding the good bacteria in the baby's gut.
Oh, interesting.
Which helps to establish a healthy microbiome, which we're learning more and more about. It has long-reaching effects on overall health, even beyond infancy.
So it's not just about the immediate nutrients. It's about setting the stage for long-term health.
Exactly.
Now, I know that breastfeeding isn't always possible or even the right choice for every family. And your notes mention that you're also considering formula as an option.
Right.
So let's talk about that. What about formula?
Sure. When breastfeeding isn't an option, formula is definitely a viable alternative. The most important thing is to choose one that's iron fortified because that iron is so crucial for a baby's development. There are different types of formula out there, cow's milk-based, soy-based, and even specialized hydrolyzed formulas for babies with allergies.
Okay, can you explain a little bit more about those hydrolyzed formulas? What makes them different?
Yeah, so in those formulas, the proteins are broken down into smaller pieces, making them easier to digest. And this is especially helpful for those babies who have allergies or sensitivities to certain proteins.
Okay, so it's like giving their digestive system a head start.
Exactly, yeah.
Awesome. So whether it's breast milk or formula, those first few months are all about building that nutritional foundation.
Yes.
But then comes the fun part, the exciting and sometimes messy world of starting solids.
Oh, yeah.
So tell me about that.
So around 6 months of age, babies are developmentally ready to start exploring those complementary foods, solids as we call them. And this is a time of such great discovery for them, but it can also be a bit overwhelming for parents.
Oh, for sure. One thing that stood out to me in the guidelines is the emphasis on those iron-rich foods.
Yes.
Why is iron so important at this stage?
Well, a baby's iron stores that they've built up during pregnancy, they start to deplete around 6 months.
Oh, okay.
So it's crucial to replenish those stores through their diet,
Okay.
which is why those foods like pureed meats, iron-fortified infant cereals, and even some veggies like spinach, they're all great first choices.
Those are good. Those are good options.
Yeah.
I know a lot of parents also have a lot of questions about the order of introducing foods and how to spot potential allergies. What guidance do the sources give us on that?
Well, the general recommendation is to introduce single-ingredient foods one at a time, with a few days in between, to watch for any reactions. And this allows you to really pinpoint any potential allergens. It's always better to be safe than sorry.
I completely agree. So as babies transition to toddlerhood, I feel like we often see a shift in their eating habits.
Yeah, definitely.
Their growth slows down a bit, and their appetites can become a little, let's just say, unpredictable.
Yes, the picky eater phase.
Right. That's a good way of
It's a normal part of development, though. Toddlers are becoming more assertive, and that includes asserting their preferences when it comes to food.
Okay, so how can parents navigate this phase without turning every single meal into a battle?
Right.
I'm sure you have some tips.
Well, the key is to approach it with patience and a positive attitude. The sources highlight this idea of a division of responsibility
Oh, okay.
in feeding. So parents provide, a variety of healthy options, and they establish regular meal and snack times. But ultimately, the child gets to decide how much they eat from what's offered.
Okay, so it's like give them the autonomy to choose within healthy boundaries.
Exactly. And you might be surprised to learn that one of the most common challenges in toddlerhood is actually limiting milk intake.
Yes, you read my mind. I was going to ask you about that.
Really?
Yeah, it's so true. My toddler, he would live on milk if I let him.
Oh, wow.
But the sources point out that too much milk, even whole milk, can actually displace those iron-rich foods in a toddler's diet.
That's right, leading to something called milk anemia.
Milk anemia.
Which is a type of iron deficiency. That can occur when, toddlers fill up on milk and don't consume enough iron from those other sources. So moderation is key, even with healthy foods.
Right. So it's all about balance, it seems like.
Yeah, it's a recurring theme.
It is a recurring theme. So apart from managing milk intake, what are some other ways to promote those healthy eating habits during those really early years?
I think creating a positive mealtime environment is crucial. Minimize distractions, eat together as a family whenever possible, and really avoid using food as a reward or punishment. These little things can really make a difference.
Yeah, those are great tips. And, speaking of family meals, the sources really emphasize their importance, not just for toddlers, but really for kids of all ages.
Absolutely. Family meals have been linked to so many positive outcomes.
Really?
Kids and teens who eat more family meals, they tend to have better overall diets. They eat more fruits, vegetables, whole grains, and they're less likely to drink those sugary beverages.
So it's not just about the food itself.
Right.
It's also about that connection, that shared experience.
Exactly. It makes mealtime more enjoyable, and and it sets a positive example.
That's a really good point. So we've covered infancy and toddlerhood, those foundational years.
Yeah.
Let's move on to what happens as kids head into the school years. Puberty hits, growth spurts. What changes in terms of their nutritional needs at that point?
Well, for one, calorie needs increase significantly during this time.
Okay.
Especially during growth spurts. Think of it as fueling a major construction project.
Right. Like they're just eating machines.
Basically.
And I imagine their nutrient needs are changing as well, right? So what specific nutrients should parents be paying attention to during middle childhood and adolescence?
Yeah, calcium is a big one, especially as kids are, building bone mass.
Right.
That means plenty of dairy products or calcium-fortified alternatives. Iron is another biggie, particularly for girls. Once they start menstruating, they're losing iron, so they really need to replenish it through their diet.
Makes sense. Are there any other nutrients that are often kind of lacking in this age group?
Yeah, the sources point out that many kids and teens don't get enough fiber, vitamin D, and potassium.
Oh, wow.
So we want to, encourage those fruits, veggies, whole grains, and lean protein.
Okay. Sounds like a pretty well-rounded diet.
Yeah.
But, of course, this is also the age where kids are becoming more independent, making their own food choices, and they're facing Oh, all sorts of temptations, right?
Right. Peer pressure, easy access to junk food, busy schedules, it's a challenging landscape, for sure.
So how can parents help their kids navigate this when they're not around to supervise every bite?
Well, I think open communication is key. Keep talking about healthy eating, but in a way that resonates with them.
Hmm.
Involve them in meal planning, grocery shopping, and as always, lead by example.
It's powerful for kids to see their parents enjoying those healthy foods and making time for physical activity.
Hmm.
It normalizes those behaviors and makes them, I think, more appealing.
For sure.
Now, we can't talk about child nutrition without addressing the elephant in the room, childhood obesity.
Right.
We touched on it briefly at the beginning, but I'd love to go a little deeper here.
Yeah. It's a complex issue, but one that we definitely need to be talking about.
Absolutely.
Because, as you said, those statistics are alarming,
Mhm.
and the sources make it clear that childhood obesity isn't just about aesthetics. It's a serious health concern with long-term consequences.
So what are some of the risk factors that parents should be aware of?
Well, genetics play a role. If a child has a family history of obesity, they might be predisposed to weight gain. But
Okay.
but lifestyle factors are arguably even more important.
Okay, so things like diet and physical activity.
Exactly. And it's not just about what kids are eating. It's also about their environment.
Okay.
Things like portion sizes, easy access to sugary drinks and processed foods, lack of opportunities for physical activity. These can all contribute to weight gain.
So it's really a multifaceted issue.
It is.
And I'm guessing prevention is key.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Starting those healthy habits early is the best defense. Encouraging breastfeeding, offering a variety of nutrient-rich foods, limiting those sugary drinks, making physical activity a regular part of family life, all crucial steps.
Yeah, all those foundational habits we've been talking about.
Exactly.
And the sources also mentioned that screening for obesity is really important too, starting as young as age 6.
Yes. Regular checkups with a healthcare provider can really help identify potential issues early on and provide guidance on healthy weight management.
Now, what if a child is already struggling with their weight? What are the treatment options then?
Well, the sources outline kind of a staged approach,
Okay.
starting with lifestyle modifications like the ones we've already discussed, healthier food choices, increasing physical activity, and reducing screen time.
So those foundational habits again.
Exactly. But if those steps aren't effective, more structured interventions might be recommended, possibly involving, a team of healthcare professionals.
Okay. And in those cases, involving the whole family is even more important, right?
Absolutely. A child's success is so much greater when, when everyone's on board, making healthy changes together and supporting each other.
So it's about creating a culture of wellness, like a home environment where healthy choices are the norm.
Precisely. And it's important to remember, too, that every child is different. What works for one might not work for another. So flexibility and a bit of trial and error are part of the process.
Right. It's not about being perfect. It's
Yeah.
about finding what works for your family
Right.
and making those gradual, those sustainable changes.
And remember, you don't have to do it alone.
Oh, that's true.
There are so many resources available, healthcare providers, registered dietitians, even trusted websites and books to help guide you.
Yeah, that's so true. It really is a journey, not a destination.
It is.
And we're constantly, learning and adapting as our kids grow and our knowledge evolves.
I love that perspective. It takes the pressure off and reminds us to be kind to ourselves.
Yeah.
As we navigate this complex world of feeding our kids.
Absolutely. Now, let's shift gears a little bit and talk about some specific feeding challenges that parents often face.
Okay.
One of your sources really dives into food allergies,
Yeah.
which I know can be a bit of a minefield.
It seems like there's a lot of conflicting information out there, especially when it comes to introducing those allergenic foods.
There is.
But one thing that's become clearer in recent years is that delaying the introduction of those foods, it doesn't necessarily prevent allergies. In fact, there's even some evidence suggesting that early introduction, done safely, of course, might actually reduce the risk.
So no more waiting until a child is a year old to give them peanut butter.
Not necessarily. It really depends on the individual child and their risk factors. High-risk infants like those with severe eczema or a family history of peanut allergies, They should be introduced to peanuts earlier, maybe around 4 to 6 months of age.
Okay.
But for low-risk infants, introducing peanut-containing foods after 6 months is generally fine.
That's good to know. Seems like those guidelines are always evolving as we learn more.
They are.
And speaking of things that can be a bit scary for parents, another topic that came up in the sources is choking hazards.
Right. Rightfully so.
Yeah.
There are definitely certain foods that pose a higher risk, especially for younger children. They're still developing those chewing and swallowing skills.
Right. The sources list things like whole grapes, hot dogs, hard candy, popcorn as being particularly dangerous.
Yeah, those are all classic choking hazards.
It's important to cut food into small, bite-sized pieces and, of course, supervise meal times.
Yeah.
Especially for those, under 4.
Definitely.
Yeah, those are really helpful reminders. I'd love to get your take on a concept that I found really interesting in one of the textbooks. It's called milk anemia.
Okay.
Can you explain what that is and why it's a concern?
Sure. So milk anemia is a type of iron deficiency anemia, and it can happen when toddlers drink a lot of milk, even if it's whole milk.
So it's not that milk itself is bad.
Right.
It's just about balance again.
Exactly. It's about what it's displacing in their diet.
Right.
If they're filling up on milk and not getting those iron-rich foods. And, it's not just about the quantity of food either. It's the quality. Your sources really emphasize offering that variety of nutrient-dense foods from all the food groups. Tools like MyPlate, they can be helpful for visualizing this.
I love MyPlate. I think it's it really emphasizes those fruits, vegetables, and whole grains, and it's a great visual reminder.
It is.
Yeah. One of the things that really struck me visually in one of the textbooks was this photo of a child with severe tooth decay.
Oh, yeah.
It was really impactful because it's easy to forget how damaging those sugary drinks can be, not just for teeth, but for overall health too.
Absolutely. Now, I know many parents they really struggle with getting their kids to eat enough fruits and vegetables. And your sources offer some great strategies for making those foods more appealing.
Like what?
Well, one suggestion is to involve kids in meal planning and preparation. If they help choose a recipe or chop veggies for a salad, they're more likely to actually eat it.
I love that idea. That's great. It makes cooking fun, and it gives kids a sense of, ownership.
Exactly.
But what about those times when a child just flat out refuses to eat what's served?
Right. Well, the sources really emphasize staying calm and avoiding those power struggles. Remember that that division of responsibility. You provide the food, they decide how much to eat.
Right. No force feeding or guilt tricks.
Exactly. You can also try, offering the food again at another meal. It can take multiple exposures for a child to accept a new food.
Right. Persistence is key.
It is.
Now, I want to circle back to the topic of screen time.
Okay.
Because it's something that came up repeatedly in these sources, and not just in the context of physical activity.
Right. Excessive screen time has been linked to so many negative health outcomes: poor sleep, increased risk of obesity, even attention problems.
And the sources recommend limiting screen time for all kids, even babies and toddlers.
Yes. The American Academy of Pediatrics, they recommend no screen time for children younger than 18 months, except for video chatting.
Okay. And
for older kids, they suggest limiting total entertainment screen time to no more than 2 hours per day.
I can imagine that's a tough one for many families.
It is, but it really highlights how important it is to be mindful of screen time and make sure it's not displacing those other activities, like playing outdoors, reading, spending time with family.
It's all about balance.
Yeah.
And, creating those boundaries around screen time can actually benefit everyone, not just the kids.
So true.
Yeah.
It's easy to get caught up in the digital world, but real life experiences, they're so important.
They are.
Now, speaking of real life experiences, the sources also touch on the social and emotional aspects of eating.
Yeah.
Family meals are a great example of how food can bring people together.
Right.
But there's also, there's a darker side to the relationship between food and emotions.
You're talking about eating disorders.
Yes.
which unfortunately are becoming more and more common.
They are, unfortunately. And the sources, they mention that dieting, especially restrictive dieting, can be a risk factor for both obesity and eating disorders.
Oh, that's a really important point.
Yeah.
It highlights the importance of sending, kids those positive messages about food and body image.
Absolutely. Instead of focusing on, weight or appearance, we should emphasize healthy habits and a positive relationship with food. It's about fueling their bodies with nutritious foods that make them feel good, both physically and emotionally.
Well said. Now, before we wrap up, I wanted to touch on one more topic that came up in these sources, the role of genetics in child nutrition.
Okay.
We talked earlier about how genetics can play a role in a child's predisposition to weight gain. But it goes beyond that, doesn't it?
It does. Genetics can influence, a child's taste preferences, their metabolism, even how their bodies absorb certain nutrients.
So it's not a one-size-fits-all approach.
Definitely not. It's important to consider those individual factors, including genetics, when making dietary recommendations. And that's where, working with a registered dietitian can be so helpful.
Because they can provide that personalized guidance.
Yeah.
Based on a child's specific needs.
Exactly. They can help create a meal plan that takes into account a child's age, activity level, any food allergies or intolerances, and even their genetic predispositions.
It's about finding that sweet spot, a way of eating that's both healthy and enjoyable.
Right, because ultimately, we want to foster a positive and healthy relationship with food that will last a lifetime.
Well said. I think that's a perfect note to end on.
Sure.
As we wrap up this deep dive into child nutrition, I'm really struck by how interconnected it all is.
Yeah.
We've talked about nutrition, of course, but also sleep, physical activity, screen time, even the emotional side of eating. It's all part of this bigger picture.
It is. It's like a beautifully woven tapestry,
It is.
All those threads, the nutrition, the physical activity, emotional well-being, they all come together to create this picture of a child's overall health.
That's beautifully put. So as we leave our listeners to ponder all of this,
Yeah.
What's one final takeaway you'd like to leave them with?
I would say, focus on progress, not perfection. There will be days when your child only eats, beige food.
Oh, yeah.
Or refuses to put down the tablet.
Right.
And that's okay. Just keep coming back to those core principles that we've talked about.
Right.
Offering a variety of healthy foods, creating those positive mealtime experiences, and just being a role model for those healthy habits.
I love that. It's a marathon, not a sprint.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And as you navigate this journey, remember that you have support. Oh, it's true.
Reach out to your healthcare provider, connect with other parents, and just trust your instincts. You've got this.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, listener. We'll be back soon with another fascinating topic to explore. Until then, happy and healthy eating.